So I'm Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 group. And I'm here tonight with Ellen Whalen, who has been a counselor in residence with Road to College for how many years, Ellen?
Well, this
Four.
is gonna be my fourth season.
Okay. And this is probably at least our third, maybe our fourth year of doing these talks about the Common App. Um, Tonight we are gonna start to give you a sneak peek about what the Common App's all about, and how you might need to want to think about your students' kind of overall story or narrative and how the Common App fits in with that. This is technically a meeting as opposed to a webinar. I only say that because if you can keep yourself muted, that would be helpful. If you really want to ask a question, which we absolutely love, and that's why we do these as meetings, you can unmute yourself and ask a question, and also put questions in the chat as well. How about before we get started, if anybody wants to share in the chat, obviously most of the families here are families with rising seniors, but if you want to share a little bit about where you're Zooming from, what like where you are in the process, have you created the college list? Have you started essays? Some people actually might have taken a look at the Common App because you can actually create an account in the Common App now, and it rolls over when it officially opens on August 1st. So just let us know a little bit about yourself and where you are in this process. And while we wait to have some people tell us a little bit about themselves, I see more people are joining. And Ellen, we didn't ask this before. Are you going to share the slides? You want me to share the slides?
I'm gonna share.
Okay, fine.
That's what I practiced, Debbie.
Perfect. I will manage the chat.
Okay, great. Which you're awesome at.
Great. Oh, I love seeing, I mean, it's so interesting that people all over the place from Garnet Valley, PA. I know where that is because I'm in Lower Merion. Dallas, Texas, California, Austin, New York City, North Carolina, Singapore. That might be the furthest away that we've had somebody, Ellen. Um,
Wow.
Great. Okay. So Ellen, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and then we can get started?
Yes. Hi, I'm Ellen Whalen. I'm happy to be here tonight. I graduated from Wellesley College with a BA in economics and Spanish. I worked in corporate America at Fortune 500 companies after I graduated, doing marketing and sales. And when my two daughters were born, I became a professional writer and editor. And then 7+ years ago, I started getting into college admissions counseling, and I've helped hundreds of families through this process, and I've edited well over 1,000 essays.
And how many
And
Common Apps have you reviewed?
I hundreds, I can't
No, I
say
know.
exactly. Yeah, well over 300, I think. Anyway, so yes, that's become a bit of my specialty, having done sales and marketing, and I really like to help a student stand out in this process, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight: how to craft and weave a narrative throughout the Common App, and the essay part of that to just make it consistent and to really highlight students' strengths and their soft factors, their values, so everything is woven together to make them just appear unique in a sea of amazing students.
Okay. Well, let's get started so that we can try and stay on track. And we tend to sometimes go over time, but we're going to try as best as possible to keep control ourselves.
Have we ever gone under time or on
Never.
time? No, exactly. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and I've got to get, okay. So, got to jump. Okay. Sorry. I'm having just a second, Debbie. Let me grab this first. Let me grab my slides. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to share my screen. Just want to make sure I get to the right place quickly. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Will you stop other rooms? Okay, no. Sorry. This will stop others. Okay. Do you want to continue? Yes, sorry. I had two shares going. Okay. There we go. All right.
Yes.
Here's my slideshow, and we're up and running.
Perfect. Looks
Okay.
good.
All right. So, unlocking your student story. That is what we are going to talk about tonight, because every student does have a story. And so, since most, if not all of you, were in college, a lot has changed since the 80s and 90s. Two big factors are that students are applying to more colleges, and a well-balanced list is more important than ever, including financial safeties. That being said, as people worry about this whole process, the majority of colleges accept a majority of students. So I don't want to create a lot of hype and get people any more anxious than they are in this nerve-wracking process. But I want to make that point. But obviously, there are schools that students want to go after that have very low acceptance rates. So the average acceptance rate is 67%. And if you've noticed that colleges can look alike, students can look a lot alike to students. Excuse me, students can look a lot alike to the schools. Okay, so what are highly competitive colleges looking for? And I'm defining that as roughly 30% acceptance rate or less, because as many of you might know, it's just so unpredictable for many, many factors that I'm not going to go into at the moment, but colleges are no longer looking for well-rounded classes. They want well-rounded students. So competitive colleges have acronyms for outstanding students that have 4.0s and really great test scores. And it's either standard positive, standard strong, or like many others. Cornell, I think it was 2 years ago, of all the students with perfect test scores, they only ACT scores or SAT scores, they only took 11% of them. So, and they probably had 4.0s additionally. So the point is, students need to do more than just, sadly, have perfect test scores and grades or, high scores to get into the highly rejected colleges. So pointy students are what can help benefit a student if they have like a hook. They're an expert in an area. And this is where the strong narrative comes in to really get that point across to the college so that they don't have to connect the dots. You're connecting the dots for them. All right, so what if your student is applying to highly rejected colleges? I want you to know that this talk is still for you. There's lots of reasons why you should be here. And I know not everyone applies to highly rejected colleges. It's just they are the harder ones to get into. So there is a little bit more marketing of a student around that. But a strong narrative and depth of activities can help when applying to competitive colleges too, not highly competitive only, but it maximizes merit. It can help the student get into the honors college or program. It can help with local scholarships. It can help with competitive majors, which I'm going to get into the 6 most popular majors, and a lot of students want these, which just makes an acceptance rate even lower. So, and state flagship universities are really popular now because they're more affordable for the middle class, and they're getting harder and harder for in-state students to get into. And that's your top research college within your state. So the 6 most popular majors in no particular order: engineering, computer science, psychology, nursing, business/economics, like if it's at a liberal arts school, and then biological science, pre-med. So as you look at this, I'm just wondering, if we did a show of hands, would 70% of the people watching say their student is considering one of these majors, it would be my guess, if not 80, right, Debbie?
Right.
Okay. So you might be wondering if a strong narrative is important. What is still under a rising senior's control? I don't know if the majority of people tonight have a rising senior, but there's still a lot because I don't want you guys panicking. This is about trying to help you. So essays, the personal statement or the main essay can go by either name. College-specific essays or supplements, like why this major. Those are, there's still lots of time to do those. Activities, I'm going to give examples in a student that I made up that has a lot of commonalities of students that I see. I'm going to show how you can still add some activities to give depth. It's not too late. Senior year grades are still, waiting to happen. Some schools might only look at junior year. I think the UCs, that's all they do. So that's not for every school, but the majority do look, I'd say, at senior year grades, or at least the first term. And then they also need to keep their grades up to when they do get accepted, they can't drop their grades too much because then they might lose the acceptance. Test scores, they could still be taking tests, but they can also just decide when they want to share them, and that can be a very strategic approach. They could share it at one school and not at another. And they can just put them into the Common App and take them out for each application because each application is a separate application before the button is pushed. Course selection, rigor has to be prioritized if a student is going after a highly competitive college. A 4.0 with just all honors classes when a school has 15 to 25 APs is not going to cut it at a highly competitive college. And then major, is your student going to consider an undersubscribed major and be realistic about the competition? And is the course selection mirroring the major? If a student says, they want to be, an engineer, and they have no physics and only have pre-calc, that doesn't go with a very good engineering narrative. So I think my next slide is yes. So I put this in because very few schools actually have transparency about acceptance rate by major. This is the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, their flagship university, and they actually do post, the acceptance rate, and you can see the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences has a 45% acceptance rate, but down below, computer science has a 7.5% acceptance rate. Now, this is a large university. At smaller universities where maybe a third of the school are athletes, so they're hooked, it's going to be even lower acceptance rates if they were to mirror this type of, these types of ratios.
Alan, can you just talk a tiny bit about, somebody asked and said, we've heard that quite a few colleges say that intended major does not impact admission. So it feels like it's like on both sides.
Yes.
Like some schools, it does, and some schools even admit you, and you have to, you're admitted into like a sub school of the college. And others, this is a true statement. Other colleges don't pay attention to major as much.
Yes. So it depends. Every college is different. And so at your large universities, often you might be applying to a college underneath that university, like the College of, like right here, like they've got engineering, right? I'm just trying to, they've got the Granger College of Engineering. They've got the Guy's College of Business. So it just, in this particular scenario, it does matter because look at the situation, right? With the numbers. Like liberal arts colleges, they tend to be the colleges where it doesn't matter as much. But if every single student that they accepted said they wanted to be pre-med, that wouldn't be very good, right? Because there wouldn't be enough lab space for everyone. So they still have to take it into consideration, but they do it more lightly because, especially at liberal arts schools, I mean, this I think goes on across the board, but it's encouraged more at liberal arts schools, let's say. students change their minds and their majors all the time. They might change their major 2 or 3 times. But if, say, a student is admitted, say, at this particular UIUC university, that if the student is in the College of Liberal Arts and they decide they want to be an engineer suddenly, they probably can't get into engineering. It's probably full. So it depends on the institution.
And these are important things to research at all the schools that your student might be interested, and to know ahead of time, because it may impact how you approach the application, in the Common App and your essay, and it may impact on whether or not that's the right school for your student if, they don't want to commit yet to what their major might be.
Yes. And it's a lot easier to go from engineering, try it, and if it's too hard or not the right choice, it's a lot easier then to go into the College of Liberal Arts. But it's usually much harder to do the reverse.
Okay, one other quick question,
Okay.
then, because this is a good one. If somebody does decide to go undecided, does that make it harder to kind of come up with the narrative and the story, like with their Common App?
It doesn't. What the students should show is that they have passions, they have interests, they're curious, maybe about a number of different topics or subjects, and they just haven't decided yet. So that can be okay, but they still need to show intellectual curiosity and maybe make some connections loosely. So as we go through more, maybe there might be a more pointed question regarding that. Okay, moving on. So what else is still under a student's control? There's a little bit more. A balanced college list, like we were just saying. Understand the colleges you're applying to and the acceptance rates difference, different acceptance rates based on major, roughly, or keeping that in mind. Letters of rec have, do they support the student's narrative? I hope most students have asked their teachers for their letters of rec. If they haven't, please have them do it quickly, because some teachers say, I only do 15. And they also get burnt out. The larger colleges, especially public colleges, don't have interviews generally, but there are schools that do, especially the smaller schools. So sign up for interviews where you can. Some of them will contact you after you applied. That's more what happens with the Ivies, for example. But, check under admissions if interviews are possible. Demonstrated interest. I could do a whole talk on demonstrated interest. Google it if you don't know what it is or how to approach it, but that's reaching out to admissions officers, visiting the college. There's lots of different ways to do it. That's still under students' control. If they've been doing it, continue to do it. Soft factors are really important. Weaving that throughout an application, and future plans. Does a student say they want to, become a writer, but they're want to study math? Like, they want to be a creative writer, but they're studying math. That doesn't necessarily jive. So that's another aspect of this process that's still under a student's control. Okay, so now that I've given some background, I'm going to, on the process, I came up with a student, like I said, a type of mix of different students I've seen over the years. And so Jack is in public school, and he has an unweighted 3.9 GPA. I think 40% of students now have a 4.0, something like that, Debbie. It's, it doesn't, it's all in context. So he has, decent SAT scores. You can see the math is higher, which is good for an engineer.
Go ahead.
So he is hoping to be an engineer. He's taken physics, calculus, and online classes, so that's supporting his narrative. He's a National Honor Society member, like so many students. And I'll just quickly tell you, a common mistake is students say National Honors Society. There's no S on the honors. He's on the soccer team, and he's also in student government. Okay, so outside of school. So a lot of students only focus on their school activities. They either forget about outside of school, like maybe family responsibilities, or they really haven't developed them. But a student can stand out more outside of school because a lot of kids do the same activities in school. So he's a Boy Scout and he has the Eagle Scout Award. He's helping his aging grandmother. He works at a burger joint. He loves to tinker, and he prides himself on a never give up attitude. Okay, so how do you tie these varied elements together to make a cohesive narrative that can be reduced down to a sentence, kind of like an elevator pitch if a student's doing an interview? One sentence would be, Jack is a natural thinker, problem solver, activist, and Eagle Scout with a sense of humor and empathy who uses his engineering abilities and talents to help his community. And now, if an admissions officer is going into committee, if it's not an admit by numbers school where they say, okay, he has enough, the grades are great, the test scores are fine, we're accepting the student. If they're going more to committee and they're doing a holistic approach, an admissions officer might make this note down about Jack, something shorter. A jack of all trades, future engineer, Eagle Scout, and community activist. And that will help jog their memory when they have to present Jack and fight for him in committee for a spot. So now we're going to look at Jack's Common App, and we're going to try to pretend we're seeing it through the eyes of an admissions officer. I gave you background, but it's going to be as if we're going to pretend that we, don't know anything about Jack, and we're going to discover his qualities together as we read. The only thing we don't have would be a transcript, and that's something the admissions officer would normally have. But sometimes one reader looks at the grades, the transcript, and the high school profile, and another reader, they read together, only looks at like the activities in the essay. So sometimes that is the scenario. Debbie, should I stop and just ask quickly if there are any questions, or you want me to just jump in the Common App?
I think you can jump in the Common App. I've been answering questions,
okay, great.
I asked you those few, so I think we've covered most of them right now.
Okay, good. All right, so now I've got to get in the Common App. Okay. So this, if you look up top in this red, it says practice account. I made a practice account. You could do that if you want to just see how it works. And so I'm skipping. I just want to show you the dashboard. Like I threw in some colleges. I'm going to go over the Common App much more thoroughly in August. But this is the individual section of the colleges where they have like the supplemental essays listed. The common part of the Common App is the piece that goes to every college. So that part's all the same unless you want to change it each time before you send it off, because each application is sent off individually to each college. It's not sent in mass. So if a student somehow for the first application made a mistake, misspelled a word, it can be changed for all the other applications. It can't get changed having been sent, to the one college it already went to. So I just want to explain that. So there's the profile of the student, the family. I am jumping to education. I'm not going to bother with those. And again, I'll go into more detail when I go over the Common App, just more about filling it out. So there are a lot of parts to the education, as you can see. I filled them out, but I'm going to show you the preview part, and you'll see it's condensed just down to this. So the colleges get a PDF of all the pieces, and it's about 13 pages, 14, 15, depending upon how many supplemental essays there are. And so a student can print out a PDF and see it in that version. But we're going to do individual sections with the preview. So quickly, education, no change in progress, meaning that he didn't take a year off. His rank, some law schools don't rank, so you wouldn't put a rank in if there wasn't one. I pretended he has a decile rank, and so he's in the top 10%. GPA, you can do weighted, unweighted. That's a whole nother debate. How, generally you want to put in how your student, however your student looks best. And you can always ask your counselor how the best way to present the GPA. But since we don't know much about Jack, right? We're like, okay, he looks like a good student. we start looking into senior year grades. And I'm looking, wow, AP Calc BC. He probably took AP Calc AD. Maybe he skipped, but he might not have. AP Physics C. Wow, he seems like a STEM kid. AP Lit. He is doing Spanish and world history. So he has the 5 core subjects. And I'm assuming he has them all 4 years because he's taking them in senior year, right? And that's what competitive colleges look for. So honors, he has 2, a national one, the Eagle Scout Award, and National Honor Society, which is a school award, and future plans. So one little secret is under future plans, a student can list the automatic doctor, lawyer, engineer, or if they scroll down to the bottom and hit other, they can write in their own future plans. And this is where it begins to become more customized, and we're going to understand Jack a little bit more through this. So he's chosen other, and it says mechanical engineer to create devices, solutions to make the world more accessible for the elderly. And he's chosen to get a master's degree. That's an option if you want to continue. So it's like, wow, that's intriguing, right? He could have just put mechanical engineer, but now we're like, wow, this is pretty specific. So I'm going to go to the next section, which is testing. And again, it looks like this. And I'm going to just hit preview. And it's very short. And so he is choosing to share his test scores. He might, for some colleges, it might not for others. And again, he can take him out and put him in. And then he's taken to
just to emphasize, you might want to think carefully about college by college, which ones you want to include and which ones you don't.
Yes, and some schools, as we know, the more competitive colleges, some of the Ivies, et cetera, have gone back to requiring test scores, so then you don't have a choice. So he's had he might have taken more AP tests. A student does not have to share any of their AP tests. And that's a whole discussion of, whether or not you share 3, that kind of stuff. But he is sharing 2 here. Maybe he's taken more and didn't want to share the score, or maybe those are the 2 scores he has. So right now I know he's taking 3 senior year, and he took 2 tests junior year. And so I know he has at least 5 APs. So I'm seeing rigor and I'm seeing good grades. All right. So now we're going to get into more meat, which are the activities. Okay. So there are 10 activities. I'm going to quickly just show you what it looks like. So they get to choose what type of activity it is. There are lots of choices. So it was community service here. And then the position is, there are 300 characters in total. That is it, not words, characters. So 50 for the position, 150 for the organization name, and 100 for the organization name, and 150 for the activity. That's 300 characters altogether. A big mistake students make is not fully using them. I have fully utilized these. I could have just said Eagle Scout, Boy Scouts of America, did an Eagle Scout project. And that's what I see often. So, and I
don't let a character go to waste.
Exactly. And I go more into that when we go into, more of the Common App mistakes. And I show a bunch of mistakes in that. So now now that you hopefully understand that, I'm going to show what I did. They also choose how many years they've been doing it, and an average of hours, and how many weeks per year. So some students under, average. Other students, you add it all up, and I say to them, you're doing more things than there are hours in a week. So students have to be mindful of that, finding that balance. But so here, order matters. His first activity is his most important. Sometimes students put that at the bottom, right? Lead with the most important one and consider grouping them. Like I've got the Eagle Scout with Tinkerer, with engineering student, and Jack of all trades. So they're all engineering focused because he wants to be an engineer. So Eagle Scout, petition slash plan, trail, stairs. So that's his position. Boy Scouts of America, that's the org. I'm defining it more. Now, we all know what that is, right? But he's been a member since age 8. There are 30 scouts in his troop. That sounds like it's active. 100 plus active scouts in town. So scouting is big in their town, right? So for him to excel in it shows that he's got a lot of support, and it's, sounds like a really cool organization to be part of. So we manage 5 scouts. We're leading with active verbs right away, building in leadership, right? This is his own project, but he's showing he was a leader in it. Built stairs and railings so people of varying abilities can enjoy trail. Problem solve engineering challenges. Volunteer with seniors. So you're like, oh, okay, interesting. We're going to find out more about him. And this is where weaving the narrative, bringing things into the essay and supplemental essays, he can go more into detail about this. This isn't the end of his Eagle Scout project. There's a lot of fodder for writing material. So I chose science math here because it's kind of school-based, even though he's doing it at home. So he's intellectually curious. He is a tinkerer. You notice that I put the titles, I chose to put them in all caps to stand out and pop. That's another little trick. So enjoy taking apart appliances and cars, home projects. So this is the org name, right? I called it home projects. And help neighbors when needed. Watch endless repairman YouTube videos to learn. So just taking creative license, that's all part of the org name, right? So tinkered since age 5, rebuilt car engine in 1990 Camaro with dad, fixed appliances, built a computer, problem solve, and help others. So we're seeing a trend here. He does this all the time, 4 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. Maybe sometimes in the summer he works, 15 hours tinkering. And 1 week when he's got tests, he only does an hour or nothing, or, an hour, whatever. So we can say the 52 weeks a year, or he's just watching some YouTube videos to relax. So that is an average. So engineering student, this is one of the ways, like up here, these are things students can continue to do, or if they decide suddenly they want to be an engineer and they haven't done anything yet for activities, these are things they can do this summer. Another thing they can do to build depth and become pointy, they can take classes on like edX.org. They are free. It was started by MIT and Harvard. So they can, most of them are self-paced. So that's what he did. He took 2 classes through MIT, which is impressive. And then he applied what he was learning. Now, family responsibilities. Some students can't work, or or they can't stay after school for clubs. They should blow up their family responsibilities and spell out what they do. And maybe they're tutoring their younger brothers. Maybe they're a chauffeur. In turn, how did that? They can spell out in like the additional information section how that limited what they were able to do, say, with after school activities. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But that's just, keep in mind the family responsibilities is highly respected. Okay, so he's a grandson and a jack of all trades, having a little fun there. Help grandmother when assistance needed, making repairs around the house. Go on walks together. As she aged, found she had trouble on her favorite walk, talked to the senior center in town to build stairs, promoted access. So now we're beginning to understand a little bit more about his Eagle Scout project. And then in school, a lot of kids are in student government, and they don't really say much about it, right? So he's just a class representative. He's not a VP. He's not the treasurer, but he took it upon himself to get into composting. So he initiated a program that he led in 11th grade, and he helped create a composting program For the school cafeteria, he manages a team of students. Again, leadership, connected with the composting company and composted. Impact is important. 2,000 pounds per year of food waste. Numbers are your friend. If a student is, fundraising, how much money did they, raise? If they're driving club membership, how many members did they bring into the club? Did they increase membership by 50%? These are helpful. How big is the club? Some clubs are quite large in these bigger schools. There could be 100, 200 members in a club, and maybe, they're the secretary, but they have to do a lot of support around that. So helping to details matter. So work is very well respected if a student is able to work. And so a lot of kids work at a burger place. And so this is, again, just having a little fun. So I've got hours here, 35 hours per week, 10 weeks per year, meaning he's working in the summer, not year round. And that's what the break refers to. So, numbers, make 300 burgers a shift. Most popular independent restaurant, Joe's Burgers, known for being friendly and clean. Just, giving a little context there. It could be defined a different way. It doesn't even have to be defined. He could go more into activities he's doing there specifically. But I just used an example of, again, how to flesh out the org name. Suggested and implemented faster processes, like a good engineer. Team leader, train new employees. Lots of students are training and they don't think about it. And so that's a skill set, right? And that's important to, learn how to work with people. So close restaurant, greet customers with a smile. So we're showing a soft factor of kindness, and he takes pride in his work. So the last one is that he plays soccer. A lot of students put their sport as first, even if they aren't planning on being recruited or playing the sport in college. And if it has nothing to do with their major, it's a missed opportunity, really. Sports are great, but really they're applying to be a student first, unless, again, they're being recruited. So that's why the sport was put down below. And so he's a bench warmer, and he's not afraid to admit it, but he's got a great attitude, and he, expands on, what he does, and he helps, younger students. And so that's enough said on that, I think. All right, so I'm going to stop.
Ellen, can I just ask, somebody mentioned that they noticed that you used abbreviations, and is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. You need to use abbreviations to put a lot in. They need to be common abbreviations. If there's some club that only their school has and they abbreviate it, we will not know what it is, right? So it should be national organizations, or simple things like I did with a W/, common abbreviation, company, CO period. Yes, you can see I would not have been able to put in as much information as I did without abbreviating. It's like a puzzle. You have to keep playing, going back and forth, and seeing how much, like I was just playing with this today, and I had fun just seeing, I was able, just coming up with different words, able to add, more detail. Is that it, Debbie?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to get into the writing section. So first is the personal statement, or the main essay, and it's 650 words max, minimum of 250, and there are the different prompts. I always suggest, share an essay of any topic. The prompts can be helpful to get a student thinking, but basically they want to see reflection and growth in these essays. So I made up a rough idea of what he was going to write about, and to help tie in and strengthen his narrative. And I said he could use his stick-to-it attitude and desire to help others. And he could, in this essay, for example, you could do it any way, many different ways you could start it. But he could, I thought he could be sitting on the bench watching a soccer game, cheering his team on, but while he's watching, his mind drifts to, you know, tinkering by himself with his dad and how he didn't give up when they were working on the Camaro. Like he hasn't given up, you know, while he sits on the bench, he still supports his team. He didn't give up when his grandmother couldn't, you know, walk on the walk anymore. Something new could be added since we know some of those stories. Another paragraph could be something about a class, like maybe he had a physics project, or maybe he was asked to tutor informally in his math class, and he could write in a paragraph what he learned from that experience, helping others and seeing how people think differently. And then maybe he comes back to the soccer as to finish the essay out with a little bit of a bow, so to speak, and talks about how he's going to take this, you know, stick with it attitude to college and use it as an engineer as he tries to solve problems. So that is a rough outline of an essay, and it can be that simple. It's the details that make the essays different. It's the specifics that get the student to be memorable. And then keeping all that in mind, if he's applying to more selective colleges, he's probably going to have college-specific or supplemental essays where we can learn more about him. Maybe he'll just go more in depth on his Eagle Scout project and talk about, you know, leading that and the challenges he had with the 5 people he led. You know, there's usually often an essay about community. Maybe his community, he's going to highlight another part of his life. Community could be church, it could be school, it could be his family. So there's lots of places for a student to highlight themselves from different angles, because you want different parts of the Common App, each part to highlight a different part of a student. You don't want to keep repeating stuff. That doesn't help.
Ellen, there are a few questions about why you chose the last prompt and how important it is. Is it important, like, no, about which prompt you actually choose?
It's not important, and most admissions officers don't even look at it. When I do the Common Apps, I don't look at it. The only thing, if they choose, like number 2, the lessons we take from obstacles, if a student chooses that one and an admissions officer happens to notice it and the student doesn't talk about any obstacles, that, you know, isn't great, right? So I just always say, just choose any topic of your choice, and then the student can never go wrong. But, you know, it doesn't hurt to weave in obstacles. Like in this particular essay, I talked about challenges he had, you know. So yes, do not worry about which one a student chooses. It's not important.
And so what about, how important is it to really understand the supplemental essays that colleges might ask, and to kind of like look over what those questions are relative to what you may want to write about in your Common App? So somebody is asking in particular that they said University of Minnesota, their supplemental essay says, why are you pursuing this major? And they were going to write about the major in their Common App essay. So is that too much overlap?
Yes. So one of my suggestions is not to write about the major generally, or if they're like, so Jack has many facets of engineering, right? So he has other stories that he could bring into why this major, but he is talking about in this, you know, made up essay, I hit upon a lot of different ideas for him. So generally, if a student only has one story for their why this major, you don't want to give it up in the personal statement, because they need fodder for an essay. A lot of schools, that's a very common supplemental essay. Why this college and why this major? Those are the 2 most common questions, and sometimes they're combined into one question. So that was astute of you to ask. And so I generally suggest a student mentions at the end, maybe, you know, what they want to study, because if a college doesn't have a why this major essay, We may not know why, Jack wanted to study engineering. It's obviously very clear with him, but so it could be in one or two sentences at the end versus 300 words. That those 300 words can be saved for a supplemental why this major essay. Now, you also, I think, started, Debbie, just trying to say, how do you navigate the supplemental essays with the personal statement? So what I recommend is students go gather all of their supplemental essays that they have. August 1st, the colleges are supposed to have them all ready to go.
Sometimes they trickle in after.
Correct. Sometimes they trickle in. They can look at what they are currently. They're in the Common App currently. A student can get their Common App going right now. They can put their colleges on their list, and the college will get a ding that they have selected that college, and they'll get a ding that they're looking at it in selected in July. That's for demonstrated interest, right? Do not fill out the specific details in that, because that does not roll over come August 1st. All the information that I'm showing you in the comment part of the Common App, that a student has to, after August 1st, roll over the application, that will all roll over without any issues. The college-specific parts will not. But they can look at the questions there, and they can begin to say, wow, I've got 3 community essays. I have 1 letter to my roommate. I have, 5 why this major essays. And they can begin to see what the commonalities, kind of like doing a Venn diagram, and say, well, I'm going to highlight, on the community essay, I'm going to highlight church. And for this, why this major, I'm going to tell the story about, what I did with grandpa and why I now want to do what I want to do. And so that is what I suggest a student does to become organized, so that they don't do it haphazardly, and they can really, again, show all the different facets of themselves really strategically.
So, just quickly on this similar topic, the question of, should a student tailor their main essay to each college, or if they wanted to change it? And what are the risks? I mean, why do you kind of shake your head no?
Yes, because what if you forget to change it? It's too complicated. You can do it, but the students will do like why this college essay, and they'll do the same one. Like, I want to be go to a school with palm trees. I like warm weather. That's why I want to go to the University of Florida. And then they send the same one to the University of Arizona. They forget to take out the University of Florida. It happens all the time. Some admissions officers, depending upon the acceptance rates, just chuckle and ignore it. Other ones go, too bad, reason to reject you. So if that happens with the supplemental essays, which are school specific, because kids are copying and pasting them in, and they have to copy and paste them in, right? So they're doing an action. But if in the Common App, the personal statement is sitting in there. They put it in and it sits there. Now they could take it out each time and try to remember to do that, and remember, hey, I've got to, alter. It's too complicated. Some of these kids, the majority, I think it's like around 60 to 80% of all the applications go in like the last 2 days before the deadline. I think it might be 80%. It's crazy. These kids, I've worked with kids, it's like, 5 minutes before midnight, and they're sending it in. You got to keep it simple.
Even though Ellen has worked with kids like that, you do not want to be that child.
Correct. You do not want to be that. Absolutely not. I've had to say to kids, I'm going to bed. So, yes, it can be done, but I do not recommend it. Now, if for some reason you had 2, one's a business major, it could be if you just are being strategic and you have to, and you have the ending a little different for business and maybe economics, let's say, depending upon the school, and you're really diligent about keeping on top of it, fine, but it just adds another layer. So yes, you can do it, but I don't recommend it. Okay, so additional information. Did I miss sorry. Okay, so I'm going to the additional information section. Now, there are 2 parts to this. So there's the community disruptions, which came about because of COVID. This did not used to exist. And now it's great in that it can also, if a student unfortunately has gone through a natural disaster, like wildfires, they can talk about how their schooling was affected or their life was affected, right? So most people do not use this, and that's 250 characters. The one that is most people miss the opportunity of taking advantage of is the additional information section, where they have 650 more words to expand upon parts of their application. This is not an area where a student uploads a resume. That is a no-no. It is not where they decide, hey, I really like this essay I wrote for Tulane, and I'm going to just put it in here as an extra essay to USC because, why not? Do not just put random essays in. It's, again, to highlight and expand. So the Eagle Scout project, in this particular case, Jack could go into many more details regarding that. And then maybe he had a newspaper article written about him, right? And that would provide evidence that what he said he did, he did. Now, you can put an article in, it doesn't, a link in, it doesn't mean it's going to be clicked on. Some admissions officers are told not to click on anything, but some do. And so there it is. A maker's portfolio could be something that some colleges like MIT and Tufts do ask for. I mean, they do prefer them for engineers. So a student could maybe have a website highlighting, Jack could take pictures of him with his dad, all the different projects he's done, working on the Camaro and, listing the many projects he's done. Could be on a website, for example, or he could just list some of them a little bit more here in detail. AP restrictions, you could put something about the school. So we were wondering, Jack had 5 APs as far as we knew, right? Well, here he says, my school only lets us take 2 APs in 11th and 3 and 12. Wow, we have some context now. Some kids might have 12 APs. Jack can only take 5 APs. So he has maxed out his rigor at his school. Good to know. That's something that can be added. Class conflicts. Maybe a student wanted to take a class, but there were 2 classes they wanted to take and they had to choose, right? And we might be wondering, well, why didn't they take that class? Well, here he says he wanted to take AP computer science, but he had a conflict with AP physics. So he chose AP lit instead along with the physics because he believes he wants to become a better writer. And then in turn, he took Stanford's Computer Science 101 on edX.org and learned a great deal that would help him as a future engineer. So those are some examples of what can be put in the additional information section. And that is everything I have to share, Debbie. And look at that, 55 minutes on my end, Debbie. I'm going to stop my share unless, hopefully we don't need to go back to the Common App. And I'm ready to answer questions.
Okay, let's see what we've got. So could I list volunteer service under activities because there are only 10 slots for activities, and then go into more detail on the different types of the volunteer services in the additional information section?
Yes, that can be a great use of it. I wouldn't, though, like if a student, volunteered one day, one time, I would not put that as an activity necessarily on the list of 10. I might try to combine it under volunteering in general. But if a student has done a lot of volunteering, and the more major ones, there are more major ones, I would, yes, highlight them. I just wouldn't highlight every single one if there are, 15. So admissions officers are board speed readers. You might be lucky if you get 8 minutes of their time. Be mindful and respectful of their time. You might have an activity that you love to do, but it really isn't relevant to your major, and it's not going to help your application necessarily. You might choose not to share it at all, right? So just always keep that in mind, who the audience is. They're usually in their 20s. They usually, they like kids. They're in the profession to help kids. So usually they're forgiving and understanding. but yes, just do not, just be judicious with using the additional information section.
The you didn't actually show a supplemental essay, right?
No.
So somebody's just asking, how do they really, like, how do they find it?
Yes. So you can Google like the college essay guy prompt, college admissions, college essay advisors. They show all of the essays that are going on currently, right? They keep up to date on them. To find them, though, they are under the individual college. I'll quickly show you. Want me to show, Debbie?
Yeah.
It's under the individual college section. Okay, so if I go to my dashboard, and then I'm going to, I just happened to look at American earlier. So I'm going to go, if we look here, it gives us some of the basics, what they're looking for, the application fee, and they want the writing requirements, the Common App personal essay. Most colleges want it. There are some now that don't, but they're less selective. College questions. So one optional question. So I'm going to go under here, and it says writing supplement. This college does not have a writing supplement, which is so odd. I don't know why they aren't consistent, because they do have an essay, and here it is. So why that's not called a writing supplement, I don't know. So sometimes they're buried under, say, activities. It might be like, what's your favorite hobby? So you have to go through all these. This one happens to be under writing. And here it is: an American inclusive excellence is a cornerstone of the academic experience for our students. We deeply value the learning that's inspired by the diversity of backgrounds and life experience that all our community members bring. Please share why you'd like to join this community. So this is why us / community essay. It's a combination. So a student would want to write about a community they're currently involved in, and maybe that community that hopefully is at American. And that's a piece of why they want to go to American. So this is a little tricky, because they keep talking about community, because normally your normal YS essay, you talk about academics, and you can talk about community and activities, but you get a little bit more into academics. And this one seems to be focused, well, they are getting into learning. They say they do deeply value learning. So I take that back. I wasn't reading it that closely, but they're also looking at diversity of background. So this is a why us essay, but I would focus on a community a bit too. So that's where it is. So they have to look for them. Sorry.
Yeah. Would you recommend, Ellen, even though this is not August 1st yet, should students still kind of pull together whatever supplemental essays they might be able, are listed in the Common App now, and then come August 1st, even August 15th, go back and double check that they are, the same?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I would do as they're going through, I would copy and paste all of this question into a spreadsheet and list all of them and look for the commonalities. And then in the next column, say, this is going to be my essay about, whatever it is, raising tomatoes, that would be relevant to this, probably a bad example, but I'm going to be a botanist. So this is going to be my gardening essay, and any other similar type of genre of essays like this, I will put gardening next to it. And it just helps, like I said in the beginning, to make it easier. So, and if they go through, like, some of these schools, when they're asking questions, they might say, do you want to join, be in the honors college? And they check that off, that might, another essay might pop up. So they can play with selecting things now to see what's going to pop up. But again, it's not going to roll over. But August 1st, they can definitely get in, and I would fill these out fully. Because even sometimes a major, like if a student wants to do architecture, that might be the only major that prompts an essay. So they put down they want to do architecture, and this essay pops up. So it's important for them after August 1st to fully fill this out so they know what they're in for.
So there's a question about, maybe you can talk a little bit, and I know this could be a topic unto itself, but about resumes, when to upload one. And if you're uploading one, the question is, it seems kind of redundant to what somebody might put into the activities section.
Yes. So resume, some schools let a student upload a resume, some don't.
And if
So
they do, should you take advantage of it?
yes, absolutely, because the resume can add more details. And if a school is saying they are open to resumes, take advantage of it, right? And generally, I'm a big believer in keeping it to one page. You know, a lot of students don't have it on down to one page. It's a lot to read. It's overwhelming. When I see 3 pages, I'm like, ah, you know. So I don't know. Some students have a lot of research and they might need a separate page to explain the research they have. Some students have, a lot of, maybe they're really into theater and they're going to apply as a theater major. And some colleges do specifically ask for a theater resume as part of the student's portfolio. So that's a whole nother topic about whether or not a student is applying to a specific program where they might have to specifically add another essay and upload like a video, audition. There's all these other things that go on with that. So I don't want to go off on that tangent. But I
Okay.
answered the question with the resume. Yes. So yes, the other thing a student can do is send a resume as a letter of introduction to their admissions officer. Just attach the resume. So that's another thing a student can do. But do not upload the resume into the additional information section. And yes, they are redundant in a way, but the Common App, you need to fill out the Common App. They have to go through the exercise because that is the exercise. The activities section has to be filled out in that format. You wouldn't just say, see resume. That would be, I think that'd be considered kind of obnoxious, wouldn't you say, Debbie? Like you need to go through the effort and the process of filling out the activities
Yeah.
section.
Yeah. Okay. Another quick question about so we're talking about the additional information section. In this case, the parent is saying the student has learning differences and they feel like that the student might not have as many outside extracurricular activities. And could they use that or should they use that section to explain
Yes.
more?
Yep. So that's a great question. So generally, if so a lot of students are neurodivergent. More and more schools are, they're by law, they are not supposed to be present. They're not supposed to not what's the legal stuff I'm thinking for Debbie? They can't be prejudiced against a student, right? If they have they're neurodivergent legally. Now they're human, right? But I wouldn't necessarily bring up being neurodivergent if the grades don't reflect it. If your student has a 4.0, in rigor, I wouldn't bring it up. Now, if your student has some, challenges with grades, it's wonderful to give context. Now the admissions officer can say, oh yeah, I can see where they were struggling in math. Now I understand. And then hopefully the narrative maybe is that your student got help around junior year and the grades started trending up from there. So it could also be how the student has learned to study better and make their own accommodations and advocate for themselves. That could be a separate essay, or it could be in the additional information section. So you have to weigh whether or not you should be sharing it. But if the grades are affected, it's so much better to let them know why, as opposed to your student just loves video games and isn't trying, right? Because if they don't have, they need information. Otherwise, they're just guessing as to why the student isn't, didn't do as well as they might have.
Personally, I think that the additional information section is an overlooked opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's not used enough, and there are a lot of ways which we kind of showed tonight how you can use that section to either add more depth or complement or just give an explanation about what's going on with the student that's not going to come out anywhere else in the application.
Yes, most people do not use the additional information section. Yeah.
Okay, how about two more quick questions that I think would be worthwhile. What's your advice, Ellen, on should students be let's put the essay aside and supplemental essays aside for a second, but should they open up an account now and start filling out the Common App.
Yes. And like I said, put the colleges in. Let them get the ding for that demonstrated interest that the student put them on their list in July as opposed to October 31st. Like, oh, geez, I have one more college space. Let me just throw this one on, right? So yes, they can always change the colleges if they change their mind. They can take that college off, but it can benefit them to put the college on now. Again, don't fill that section out, but select the college and then August 1st, roll it over the Common App.
Okay, so lots of good questions, but we're gonna sum it up. And there was like, this question came up a lot. It's tactical, but still, people ask about, and this is kind of related to test scores and grades. So somebody is asking, is it frowned upon to not, which you kind of talked about, maybe you go in a little detail, is it frowned upon to not submit the AP score? And then the second, which is separate but related to scores, is what about super scoring?
Okay. So most schools do super score. And off the top of my head, I think, well, schools, I think you have to, when they put the SAT scores in, they're putting the date of when they took the test, right? I'm not 100% sure. I can't think of if you can super score on the Common App, Debbie. I don't think you can because you've got to put the dates in.
Right.
But the schools, they will then in turn super score, right? So I wouldn't worry about it. The majority of schools super score. If they don't, then you wouldn't share, I guess, the really bad. I don't know. That's a bit tricky. But when I just put the scores in my pretend student, I had to choose a date from which test they came from. So
And just the reality is
was that AP? Sorry.
the way the reason why most schools super score is because they want to take your best scores, and then it only helps them and you. So it used to be a lot trickier in the past, but I think except for a handful, I'm going to say less than 5, they are just going to take your best scores and create the super score.
Exactly. They want to go up in rank and use news and world report. So yes. So here we go. So it is super scored. I was putting the I haven't okay. So highest math score. There we go. It goes in that way. I stand corrected. I was playing with the AP scores with the dates. I wasn't really looking at the wording. So the student does super score it themselves.
Yeah.
So
and then so then I guess the other question is about the AP.
Yeah.
Well, what's the sense about sharing the AP score or not? And it does look bad if you're not sharing it.
Yeah. So colleges can't unsee what they've seen, right? But if a score isn't shared, a college isn't supposed to assume something, right? If it isn't shared, they aren't supposed to assume, oh, they must have gotten a 1, right? For all they know, your student was sick that day and didn't take the test, or the teacher quit and they weren't able to have a review, so no one in the class took the test, right? So there's different reasons that they can't assume that they shouldn't assume. Now, if that did happen, I would put that in the additional information section, say, I didn't take my math, calc, test because I was sick and I couldn't take it. So that's how I would approach that. Some students, have, maybe they've taken 8 APs and they only list 6 scores. Well, the admissions officers are reading quickly, right? Are they going to go and take the transcript and go match the two and say, where are those other 2 scores? I know we get I'm sorry.
Put your best foot forward here.
Exactly.
And really just show the scores of your best scores, which you're gonna, if you get the 4 and the 5, to show those.
Yeah. And there are schools, you can look it up. You can Google the school and say, what do they give credit for APs? And there are schools that give credits for 3s. If they give a credit for 3, then share that score. unless maybe it's your major score, you know what I mean? And then it's like, maybe I should have gotten a higher one if it's a competitive major. So it's all in context.
Okay, well, thank you, Ellen. I think we got through a ton and we got to a lot of good questions. Um, uh, just so that you guys know, you probably will get an email about it. We do offer services if you want help with essay as separate. If you want help with Ellen, actually, as you can tell, is an expert in what we call a Common App review, which she will basically go through kind of what she did tonight with your students, exact Common App, and kind of, go through the activity section, make recommendations to improve it, kind of like, look at it as a whole and say, are all these pieces working together to the best for your student? So you'll get information about that if you need extra help in any of those areas. And I just want to say that we are doing a slightly different version of a talk about the Common App. I don't have the date in front of me. It's sometime in August. And I think it's worthwhile to be on the lookout for that, because Ellen will go through mistakes, common mistakes, and some, really not good mistakes that she's seen students do in the Common App. And I think it's a really worthwhile session.
And Debbie, I'm going to need a real Common App.
Right, that's it. And we will ask for people to submit their Common App. So that's an incentive to get something done by then.
Yeah. And just so people know, we block out all personal information. So because we will be sharing it. But like the family we helped last year, they were tremendous. They could not have been happier to have received a free Common App review with all the suggestions I gave. So yes, don't worry about that aspect of it. But yes, we do need someone to give us a Common App to go through. So I can show instead of making up a student, I show common mistakes, and then we go together through a Common App.
Yep. So great. Well, thank you, Ellen, for all your expertise. Always a pleasure to do these sessions with you. You really do most of it. I'm just answering questions and asking you questions. And if anybody has any questions of us, feel free to reach out. You can email me at support@roadtocollege.com. And hopefully you guys will get started tonight, because the earlier you get started, just I saw somebody put like a time frame together about how long it really takes to write a good essay, and it was like 10 to 12 hours. And you just you can cram it, but it's never going to be the same if you spread 10 to 12 hours over a few weeks time.
Well, I usually think on average 7 rewrites are about right.
Yeah. So
and writing's rewriting, and they need time for it to sit.
Yeah. Yeah. So not to scare anybody, but now's the time. Get started. Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Ellen.
Good night. Good luck, everyone.